Thank you guys. And to echo Gene's comment, first I'll say thank you because you all brought this to the #1 business school in America. I didn't do that, you did that. You make me look a lot smarter because I didn't actually go to BSD. I went to the College of Arts and Sciences. I graduated with a degree in political science, but I spent a almost 22-year career on Wall Street. And I did that from here, and my mission now, and all of us, is to find ways for those of you who want it to help you do the same thing. And certainly to help you get through the first step, which is the process of landing an interview, landing an internship, getting that turned into a job. Okay? So today I'm going to try to give you the answers to the test. I can't take the test for you. I'm going to take you through a bunch of background information about how many of you here in the room are freshmen? Good. Okay, the first year we did this, we had no freshmen, a whole bunch of seniors with their jobs. Okay, how many of you are sophomores? Terrific. Again, juniors. Okay, a lot of you, and then seniors. Okay, you guys have a tough road. And we'll talk about some of the timing specifics for each of you through each of the years while you're here. And I will start now. We've done this. It's like class here. We don't have a bunch of it. So, what do global financial institutions do? Made up. And this is totally oversimplified, but in these 4 pieces of the Venn diagram here: investment banking, private banking and wealth management, asset management, and then across all of these businesses is a group called shared services. I'm going to take you through each part of the global financial services institutions, take you through a little bit about what they do, and the reason for this is, how many of you are not business students? Okay, a couple, good. So I was too, which is strength in numbers, guys. There are, and I did go back and get my MBA, so, but there are a lot of students that come down here in the summertime to talk to the SBI, which is the Summer Business Institute students. Those are all non-business students getting a business minor over the summer. And there's a whole lot of them too, so I'm assuming many of them are thinking about careers outside of maybe going to grad school for science. I'll take you through each of the different parts of the firm, do a little bit of background. Since most of you are business students, I'm not going to spend a ton of time here. This content is all available to you. It's available soft copy through whatever the web portal is you guys use to access content. So we'll start with the investment banking part. Investment banking is made up of sales and trading, prime brokerage, research, and capital raising and advisory services. Each bank might call these different things. The sales and trading label is pretty ubiquitous across the whole industry. Prime brokerage is something that's really only a business offered by 3 or 4 of the biggest banks. Morgan Stanley is one of them. JP Morgan has been in and out of it in different asset classes, different parts. Goldman Sachs has been a big powerhouse here. Credit Suisse has been in and out of this business, but most of the others are largely out of this business now. But prime brokerage as a multi-asset class offering is, in simple layman's terms, about renting the expertise of the bank for clients, predominantly hedge funds. So it's operations, it's technology, it's accounting, it's finance services, and most importantly, it's financing of their assets. So it's giving them leverage for their balance sheet, it's giving them funding vehicles in order to lever up their investments. Something that's obviously very important to a hedge fund. So prime brokerage usually fits in that institutional securities business, or the investment banking side of the business. Research is as it sounds, it's research. And here I'm generally talking about the capital R research. This is the stuff that you would see published. It's sanitized for retail investors, so people, it can be distributed widely. It's the kind of things you would see. JP Morgan wrote a piece on the healthcare industry. That comes out of the research department typically. It might be on the industry, it might be on a specific issuer, it might be on a specific security. That's what comes out of research. Capital raising advisory services, some people call this investment banking, some people call it advisory, some people call it capital markets. Typically it's the generic term for iBanking, but iBanking, for any of you who have an interest or a passion to want to become an investment banker, the first question you need to know how to answer is why and what is it? And the answer is it's lots of things. So if you just want to be an investment banker, develop a story for why that is. What do you know about it? What research and homework have you done to figure that out? Because there's a big difference between advisory services, capital markets, liability management, M&A. There's really very different specialties and very different fields within investment banking. So, private banking and wealth management. We have Steve on our panel, is in the wealth management business at BAML. This is generally specific financial services advice and product tailored towards high net worth individuals, so wealthy people. people a lot more wealthy than I am. I do get coverage from them because I have to have an account at Morgan Stanley, but they'd rather not talk to me. They'd rather talk to people with a lot more money than me. And that business, and I'll let Steve talk about what that business is and the kinds of things that make people successful in that business, is a much more entrepreneurial side of this business. The investment banking, sales, trading, research banking part of it, you are definitely working for a corporate structure. Right? There's a hierarchy, there's a process, there's a way to do this. The wealth management business is a place where you can exercise a lot more entrepreneurial spirit. You're building your own business. You eat what you kill. You're responsible for building your own book of business, and you live off the revenue that it generates. Corporate, retail, and private banking, here's the places where there's an overlap of that wealth management, entrepreneurial services partnered together with the power of a global financial institution that can do things like tailored lending and specialty lending products that come out of banks, and then Steve and his peer group would then sell to their client base. Asset management, so this is alternatives, so hedge funds and vehicles like that. That's largely shrinking into banks, the big banks, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, Deutsche, because there are things like the Volcker Rule and Dodd-Frank and others have pushed away from us. But traditional asset management business, mutual funds, private equity vehicles, leveraged finance vehicles, those things typically end up in the asset management arm of our firms. Asset allocation, so here things like asset managers that are outside of the banks, so the BlackRocks, the PIMCOs, the Wellingtons, the Fidelities, the Western Assets will do a lot of asset allocation business. They're typically given money by other investors and asked to manage that money for them. So pension funds will give them money. Some cases mutual funds and alternative investors will give them money and ask them to exercise discretion over a certain part of their portfolio. So that's what the asset management business looks like. And then global distribution, most of those asset management businesses have a sales arm to them. So a way of either finding investors or finding distribution channels that will get the product out to investors. And then we get to the center section, and the reason that I spent little time on those other ones is I'm going to show you distribution later of the places where analyst jobs exist. So within Morgan Stanley in 2015, and you'll find that the distribution of jobs has shifted dramatically. Used to be, when we started this program 13 years ago, and I've been doing it for the last 10 years or so, this was a very, very sales and trading, investment banking, that first circle was focused on that. That's what everybody was after. And the reality is the number of jobs, and certainly the number of jobs focused in the New York metro area, which is where most of you guys have been thinking about applying to, right, are reducing. And when they're not reducing, they're certainly not growing. Okay, but it doesn't mean that the entire industry is shrinking. Certainly not. What's happening is these other circles are becoming more important, and what we're trying to do as professionals come back to help you get success is show you where to look. Okay, so I'm getting you to think about things like the wealth management side of the business, the asset management side of the business, and specifically these shared services. The shared services is legal, compliance, finance, operations, technology, human resources. These are all of the things that help these huge corporate behemoths that are the banks actually operate. I spent the previous 21 years of my career in operations. I started as a trade support analyst coming out of college and worked my way up and was ultimately a managing director running a global business for a number of years. And then this July I moved to my new job in sales and trading. It was a phenomenal place to build a career. I did probably over the 21 years roughly 15 different jobs. If you like variety, if you like to learn new things, you'd like to have new challenges and build a fungible career, it was a phenomenal place to be. The world changes much faster now than it did 10, 15, 20 years ago. Okay? You have to be more adaptable, and you have to be open to and thinking about career paths that aren't straight lines in one job function. Right? The reality is those straight line job functions do happen in some cases, but they're pretty rare. Okay? And so what I want you to think about, and think about as far as growth opportunities, this is the #1 business school. We are doing our best to get our name out there. I'm beating up my new HR coverage as much as I can. I used to run all recruiting for operations. Now I'm in sales and trading. I'm the new guy, but I'm a pretty senior new guy, so I'm going to start flexing my Villanova muscle where I can. But I want to give you some stats, and a couple of the guys in the room that I talked to earlier today already know these stats. When I ran operations recruiting at Villanova, I would come down here, we'd interview 35, 36 students, and I would make job offers to probably 6 or 7, and probably have 6 people start and work for me every year. I'm coming down now for sales and trading for fixed income. Well, we're not coming down. We did a resume drop. That resume drop finished a week ago. We collected 25 resumes that we actually looked at past the initial HR screening. Of those 25, I think there was maybe a half a dozen phone interviews done. 2 people get selected, and I got to go fight with HR now to get 2 seats in a super day for Villanova students in fixed income trading and sales. Okay? That's a dramatically different hit rate than when I come down here and I'm going to do 36 students and I know I can make 5 or 6 job offers at the end of it. Okay? The deck is stacked against you if you're sold on a single position in this industry is the only way you're leaving Villanova. Okay? It's going to be hard. So I want you to keep your options open and explore all the different parts of the bank when it gets time thinking about what you're going to apply for. Okay? I'm going to talk to you a little bit. So here's the distribution. So investment banking still does hire a lot of analysts. Okay? It's a lot of raw material in, and they churn through it, and not many of them are left after 3 years. Okay? It's a high turnover business. It's a high burnout business. Okay? Those of you who are passionate about it, go for it. It's awesome. Okay? I couldn't do it, but there are still lots of opportunities in operations. You look at number 2 on the list, so it's operations. Okay? So operations hired 90 analysts last year. This is just North America. Okay? Behind operations, you have company. Company is finance, HR, legal, compliance. You get fixed income, so my sales and trading group that I'm part of now is half the size of the operations team, and it's already got lots of pet schools they like to go to. For some reason, they still think that the Irish out in South Bend are worth hiring. Okay? I will fix that. But right now, they're still hiring in Notre Dame. Okay? They're also going to the Ivies. They're going to the big tech colleges. They're going to MIT. They're going to Caltech. They're going to go higher because a number of these jobs are highly quantitative analytical jobs. Okay? That narrows the field more and more for the spots that are going to be available to Villanovans. Okay? I will make progress in getting more hiring done on this campus, but we're not going to move the needle from 50 to 150. It's just not going to happen. Tech and data hires another 50. Global capital markets, so another part of the investment banking side of it. IED, institutional equities, that's the sales and trading for equities business. They only hire 30. Yeah, that's a business that George Casey's father used to run at Credit Suisse. If you ask him, even a dozen years ago, they probably hired 150. They're also probably down to the ballpark of 30. Right? The number of people deployed to sales and trading type jobs has shrunk dramatically, even as volume in this business has gone up dramatically. Right? The big banks don't need the manpower behind it anymore. Wealth management is hiring another 23, investment management 14, so that's the asset management business at Morgan Stanley. Research another 11. BRM is our financing and liquidity management, so a pretty small team. And then commodities hired 2. Okay, that's another sales and trading function. There's 2 in North America. And by the way, North America is where our commodities business is based. And they hired 2. You think about the opportunities that are out there. If you're bent on banking, it's a tough road. It's a hard job. Right? There are opportunities there. But behind that, the other jobs, you have to start looking at that center circle too for the shared services portion. Okay? I'm going to take you through a little bit of, hopefully, it'll be just-in-time advice for those of you who are sophomores. Those of you who are juniors, the clock is ticking already. As I said, my sales and trading program, the resume drop was a week ago. Right? We're making decisions now already. We've done phone interviews over the last week, and our decisions for who's going to get invited to Super Day have been made already. Okay? Operations will be here in a couple weeks. Other parts of other firms have resume drops that go out a little farther in advance, a little bit farther into the fall semester. But the underlying message here is the schedule has moved. It used to be spring of junior year is when you got your internship. That internship then led to a full-time job. It is now fall of junior year that gets you the internship for the summer between junior and senior. And that internship is still your key to a full-time job. Okay? It's not the only way, but it's certainly the easier way. Okay? So freshman, sophomore year, and this is a theme across this where I'm going to sound like dad a little bit, okay, do well in school. Because if there's one thing you have to do, it is do well in school. You got into a great school. Fantastic. You got to have above 3.0. Like if I'm going to do one thing you have to do, keep your GPA above 3.0.
3.5.
What's that?
3.5.
3.5. Okay? So they're definitely more restrictive. If you have it below a 3.0, most banks can't talk to you. There are some quantitative metrics that get reported to the Department of Labor on fair hiring standards and things. We have to set some thresholds, and one of those thresholds is the GPA floor. Right? 3.5, you got no problems anywhere. If you're below a 3.0, you got a lot of closed doors in front of you. Okay, so if there's one thing to do from day one, it's keep your grades up. 2, learn and network. Ask questions. Do stuff like this. Meet people. Find out what careers are out there. Find out what jobs are like. Talk to the juniors and seniors. Talk to people who spent their summer working on Wall Street already. Talk to people who work in a boutique shop in Philly. Talk to people who work in Houston in an oil field services boutique shop. Like, find out what's different about New York versus Texas versus Atlanta, for careers in financial services. Talk to alumni. We're all here because we care about Villanova, right? There are lots of Villanovans who care about Villanova. The school has, I think the stat is 118,000 living alumni right now, okay? I'll bet you half of them want to talk to you, especially this year, okay? Because you all were here when we won the championship, okay? That's a lot of fun. Talk to the alumni. They're an amazingly valuable resource, and historically, we were a very New York Metro-centric school. So a lot of the alums either came from or have some connection to the Northeast. But if you're interested in financial services, that's a good thing, right? Because most of the jobs in financial services are in the Northeast. Okay, so talk to alumni, talk to friends and family, network with friends of your parents, anybody you know that works in this industry, ask questions. Build your resume and experience, get jobs, demonstrate responsibility, demonstrate leadership. I'm going to take you through some of the things that we look for in the interviewing process. Find ways to build out pieces of your story in your resume that fit those buckets. Okay, practice interview and network. Go meet people, talk to people, use the alumni network, ask to talk to people. You cannot practice enough meeting with people who work in a professional environment when you're in college. You have to learn how to drop some of the vernacular that you get used to in college and adjust to a professional environment, right? That takes practice. Do it now, not when you have to do it to get a job. Do it your freshman, sophomore year when you can practice it. Okay, and then engage. This is your responsibility. I'm going to do everything I can to help you, but I can't get you a job. Right? I can open doors for you, I can help you make connections, I can help you introduce people, but I can't give you a job. You have to earn it. In your junior year, the clock is ticking, loud and fast, okay? You get in the interview, find the interviewing schedule, find out when the companies that you're interested in are on campus, find out those companies that you are interested in that are not coming to campus, and find out how you get in front of them, right? Find an alumni connection, find a way to get something other than just a resume drop on a website somewhere, okay? Some of them don't even put stuff in Handshake, right? Some of them just have jobs on their own website. I guarantee you, for the jobs that are posted at Morgan Stanley, and somebody applies at morganstanley.com/careers, like that goes into a bucket of like 50,000 resumes. If I then go back in and send a note to HR that says, this person, here's their resume, applied for this job rack, okay, somebody's going to read your resume because they don't want to piss me off, okay? If you just apply and dump it in the bucket with 50,000 resumes, I'm guessing nobody reads your resume, right? If you dumb luck if they do. So find ways to network, engage with people, be proactive. You got to own this process. Because by the time it comes to spring of your senior year, mom and dad are going to get pretty antsy if you don't have a job yet. Okay? Plan ahead, prepare, get ready for virtual interviews. Okay, this is a different thing. I wouldn't know how to do it. I've never had to do a virtual interview. My guess is you guys are going to, you probably are better prepared for it, but you're going to have to practice and do this. Right? Whether it's Skype interviews, phone interviews, like video conference interviews in a better than Skype environment. Right? All of those things definitely feel differently than sitting in the Career Center face-to-face with an interviewer who's an alum. Right? Recognize you might be getting screened by somebody in HR who doesn't know anything about Villanova. Or you might be sitting in a room with somebody who went to school here 5 or 6 years ago. Right? You're going to have a very different rapport, very different experience with those two different environments. Get ready for your internship. Okay? Summer after your junior year, to be successful here, you landed an internship. Recognize that is a 10-week interview. Okay? The reason we give you an internship is not just so you can get coffee all summer, right? Because frankly, we can get our own coffee. Right? It's about seeing how you work in a professional environment before we make a long-term, multi-year commitment to you. Right? And while nobody's going to get a multi-year contract to come work, when we hire you, we plan to invest a number of years into you to train you and get you up to speed. I want to make sure I've got something better than a 30-minute conversation to base that decision on. That's what the internship is, 10-week interview. Treat it like that. Do everything you can to impress people. Ask a lot of questions. Do the job as well as you can. But learn, right? Ask lots of questions. And then obviously you want to finish that summer with a job offer. Right? If that doesn't happen, you come back senior year, you still have to do well in school. You have to accept your job offer or don't. Don't sit on the fence. Okay? I've had conversations with students every year. If you have a job offer from a company, they're holding a position for you. If you don't want it, tell them you don't want it. If you do want it, take it. Okay? You're not signing over your firstborn, but you are committing to a job because they've held a spot for you. Recognize it's not free to give up that spot. right? When you say 6 months later, sorry, I changed my mind, it has to be for good reason, right? Make sure that you're comfortable because you are putting a match to the bridge behind you, right? You're not going back. Now, someday you'll rebuild that network and you'll talk to people and it'll be fine and we all understand that things go on. But if you do that 3 or 4 times, recognize you've burned 3 or 4 bridges. Okay? It's not something that comes for free. Make sure you're doing it thoughtfully. If you've got a job offer in your senior year of college, and it's a job that doesn't make you want to bomb it, think long and hard about why you wouldn't take it. Okay? I don't want you taking jobs you're not happy with. I don't want you taking jobs you don't want to do. But if you spend a summer there, it's pretty good, and you're kind of hoping maybe you'll win the lottery between now and next Tuesday, take the job. You're not going to win the lottery. Right? If you took that summer job and you worked there all summer and you shadowed a bunch of different people and you saw a bunch of different functions and there's nothing you ever want to do again, turn them down. Let them open that spot up and hire somebody else. Okay? Especially with programs that are here on campus, spending time investing in and interviewing lots of Villanovans, the longer you keep that open, the less likely it is that another Villanova gets that spot. Okay? And this is where Villanovans can help Villanovans. If you're not taking the job, turn it down immediately. Right? Frankly, if you figure that out during the interviewing process, remove yourself from the interview. Right? You might open up a spot for one of your classmates. And that, trust me, as long as you get a job too, it helps both of you. Okay? Don't burn bridges and then give back. Right? When you're done, you get out of here, and you start your job, do what we do. You can't do it day one. Okay? But do it 2, 3, 4 years down the road. Find ways to help your classmates. Find ways to help your fraternity brothers and sorority sisters. Find a way to reach out to people you were involved in groups and clubs and activities with here. And then just come back and meet students 5, 6, 7 years later and share with them what you learned. Right? The power of Villanova for a relatively small school, 7,000 undergrads is a relatively small school, is the alumni network. Okay? So leverage that network, do well, and give back. So learn to investigate companies in your sophomore year. Reach out to alumni, target companies early and often. Apply for the summer before your junior year into the fall of junior year. Schedules are moving up. Research, learn. Don't start asking these questions in December. It's too late. Okay? And then you are in charge of these opportunities. A little bit of preparation before you go into interviews. Talk to you a little bit about the things that people are looking for. I'm not going to go into, there's a lot of content on these slides. I'm not going to read every one of them. The point of those slides is to give you ideas and examples of ways you can demonstrate the skills and qualities we're looking for when we interview. I'm not going to read them all, but I am going to ask you to, if you get this off whatever the web portal is where you guys can get this content, take a look at it. We're looking for leadership roles, we're looking for grades, we're looking for awards, varsity sports, work experience, test scores. All these things are demonstrating your capacity for leadership in the future. Okay, so where you've taken leadership roles in sports, where you've stepped up in club activities, recognize that, think about how you sell that in the resume, and also think about what story you craft to tell that. Okay, the interview is about getting you to tell a series of narratives, a series of stories about yourself. Okay, the resume should make me want to hear the story, and then the interview is for you to tell me the story. Okay? 5 candidate core competencies here: leadership, results orientation, intellect and problem-solving skills, technical knowledge, collaboration. This is a 5 answers to a question that I'm often asked. I come up with 3. People ask me, what do you look for when you're hiring? There's 3 things that I look for in hiring. One is intelligence, because stupid is fatal. It doesn't get fixed. There's no way to untrain that later. Judgment, because that's why we employ human beings in jobs in financial services. Right? If it's a formula-based answer, I can write a program to do that. Right? If I need judgment, it's often because we have imperfect information. I need somebody who can make a decision. Okay? And then the third is integrity, because you're going to get number 2 wrong sometimes. You're going to make bad calls. You're going to make bad decisions, and I need to trust that you can put your hand up and say, I'm in over my head, I made a mistake, I need help. And if I don't trust that third piece, I can't have you work for me. Right? Those are 3 things I can't teach people, and that's what I spend my interviewing questions and time trying to get from somebody. So if you think about, if you're coming to meet with me, or somebody like me, what am I going to do over the 20 minutes that we're talking to convince him that I'm intelligent? Right? And most of that's pre-factored to the fact that you're at Villanova and you've got above a 3.5, if you're talking to Casey. Judgment, I'm going to ask you about decisions you made, why you made them, how you made them. I'm going to keep probing and ask you stories around your decision-making process. And then integrity, I'm going to ask you questions that I know would be really easy to try to embellish and tell me things that are a little bit better than the truth. And I'm going to look for those things, go to the red flags to me. Because you don't answer me honestly when it doesn't matter, right? When there's real money on the line, I get really nervous. Okay? So these 5 qualities are one way of looking at it. To me, I make it a little bit simpler and put it in 3, but it's really about the same things, right? Leadership is the one that's missing from my list of 3. I don't believe the world is made up of 100% of leaders, right? I do think there are roles for leaders and non-leaders, but I don't think anybody can have no leadership qualities and succeed in a business like this. Okay. Interview best practice and tips. Again, we'll go through this reasonably quickly. I know you guys, what has changed in the last 13 years, I came here 10 years ago and started doing this. There was no prep on this campus. And I'll go back, I didn't know where the Career Center was, and I lived in Core Hall, and it was in the lobby of Core Hall. I was also in Arts and Sciences, and we weren't allowed in the Career Center back then. But I'll tell you, this school has gotten much, much better at prepping you for interviewing, for resume writing, for networking. I know just looking at what I do with the professional development program, the Arts and Sciences, and what I do with SBI, I mean, there's a lot put into getting you guys ready for this process, which is phenomenal. Almost nobody shows up in an eggplant-colored shirt anymore for an interview, right? Which is great. That was your dad's awesome. He's like, what is eggplant? And that was the color of the shirt some guy wore to an interview once with George Coleman, which was an interesting. I would love him to fly in the room that day. So do your homework. Know who you're meeting with. Okay, and this is no matter what company you're going to talk to. It really doesn't matter what industry you're going to talk to. I'm talking specifically about financial services, but it's no different if you're going to talk to Dow Chemical or GE or, frankly, J&J, anybody. Know what company you're talking to, know what they do, know what's going on in the news with them lately. If there's some big headlines, like above the fold stuff on section A or C in the Wall Street Journal, you better know it, right? And have some view, some thought, or at least some thoughtful question about what it might mean to the person you're talking to. Show that you understand what company they work for. And be careful about what company they work for. When you write cover letters and resumes and ask for help, do not tell me how excited you are to learn about Goldman Sachs. Okay, and recognize that I don't ever want to hear those words mentioned inside my office. Okay, we have a very healthy rivalry between the two firms. The same thing between J.P. Morgan and Morgan Stanley. I mean, they both come from the House of Morgan, but we've been separated since 1935, and we don't want to go back. Okay. Know the position. So know what it is you're applying for. Don't talk to me about investment banking if you come and talk to me about, don't mention investment banking if you want to talk to me about an operations job. Don't talk to me about research if you're applying for a sales and training position. Right? Understand what it is you're applying for and do your homework about what that means. Okay? And then know your resume. Right? This goes to the integrity question, it goes to the judgment question. Don't put stuff in your resume you can't talk to. Right? Don't talk about things that are contradictory to what's on your resume. And then think like the interviewer. So as I told you, I try to walk you through the kind of things I'm thinking about and looking for. Look at those 5 competencies that we're looking for as an interview, and think about, they're asking me questions, and no, I don't care how many golf balls fit inside the fuselage in 747. Okay? What I want to know is, how does your brain work? How do you take a problem like that that's unsolvable and come up with some solution you can estimate? Right? I'm not a big brain teaser question asker. Some people are. Right? You meet with guys in my structuring business, they're going to ask you those kinds of questions. They're going to ask you logic questions. They're going to ask you, what is the square of 41? Right? They're going to see how good you are at math. How fast can you think in large numbers? And it's not that you get the exact right number, but can you get the right order of magnitude? Right? To understand, can you think conceptually around math? Right? If they're going to ask you questions like that, think about what they're trying to get at. They don't care how many golf balls fit inside a 747. They want to know is, how do you dissect a problem like that? How does your brain work? Okay? First impressions is more than just words. So dress to impress. I mean, we do a whole program on dress to impress here. We do a whole program on professional dress and attire in SBI and the professional development series. I'm assuming VSB does something similar. I'm prepping you. This room looks phenomenal. Even just 5-6 years ago, there was a lot of flip-flops and shorts. You didn't need to wear suits, jackets, and ties tonight, guys, but I'm glad you did. It's not too hot out today. I'm wearing one, and I didn't take I had my jacket off, but I put it back on. It's good practice. You dress like we dress. I'm probably a little bit more color and pattern going on than most people on Wall Street would do. You cannot go wrong with a blue suit, gray suit, blue shirt, white shirt, red tie, right? Good power tie. You start getting into the oranges and yellows and greens and brown suits and things, you're pushing the envelope a little bit, right? Get the job first, then you can play with your color in the wardrobe. Okay? Women, wear a suit. Wear a suit. Wear a suit. Okay? You may not have to wear a suit ever again in your career. Wear a suit in the interview. You will never give anybody anything to comment about your wardrobe if you wear a suit. Right? So that's my advice, wear a suit. That means that there's some kind of jacket with some kind of outfit underneath the jacket. It can be a blouse, it can be a closed jacket with slacks, skirt, whatever. It's a suit, wear a suit. Everyone, clean, neat hair. Guys, either you got a great beard or you shaved this morning, okay? Nowhere in between, okay? I can grow a mean beard, looks like Santa Claus now. Okay? I don't wear it very often, especially not unless it's dead of winter. If you got a great beard, wear it. If you got a Don Johnson, well, none of you know what Don Johnson is. If you got a 5 o'clock shadow, leave it at home, okay? Shave it clean, okay? If you like to wear lots of jewelry in your ears, I'd tone it down that day, okay? If you like to wear lots of jewelry, period, I'd tone it down that day. If you, how many people in this room smoke? It's amazing, we've solved the whole problem, nobody smokes anymore. If any of you are now lying, and you do smoke, don't smoke before you go to the interview, okay? I'm a reformed, I smoked for 20 years, I smoked 3 packs a day for a while. Okay? I can smell cigarettes 2 miles away. Okay? It bothers me now, I hate them. Okay? I still smoke cigars, I hate cigarettes, you can figure that out with my therapist. There's nothing good that comes from walking into an interview smelling like cigarettes. Okay? There's nothing good that comes from an interview walking in chewing gum. There's nothing good that comes in like you just ate a garlic pizza. Okay? Think about the impression you create when you walk in the room. It's not a huge sacrifice, even if you're a heavy smoker like I used to be. Go buy some Nicorette and pop it in your mouth that morning and spit it out just before the interview. You'll survive the 22 minutes. Okay? No cell phones. So I do very much appreciate the request of being in this. You guys turn them off and silence them. So far, I haven't heard a single ringtone. That's awesome. Make sure they don't go off in an interview. Because there's nothing that says my time is more important than yours than my cell phone ringing when you're here to meet with me. Okay? Review your resume. Don't smoke, don't chew gum. When the interviewer comes out, and you're usually sitting in a waiting area, or you're milling around with a bunch of other students because you're a super day and there's 15 or 20 of you together. When the interviewer comes out and they call your name, walk right over, firm handshake, look them in the eye. Most of you have got it, but name tag on the right-hand side. Okay, this is something they actually teach in arts and sciences. I don't know if they teach in DSP. Name tag goes on the right-hand side because you reach with your right hand and shake hands. Well, they didn't use it. Yeah. Name tag goes on the right-hand side. The reason is you reach with your right hand. It's really easy for somebody to not have to ask you your name. When they're reaching to shake your hand, they can see your name. It just makes life easier. Right? There's nothing more awkward to try to do this and see what's on the left-hand side. Even though it feels better to put it here, put it on the right, look at it, later, shake your hand. Makes that whole transaction a whole lot easier, and people remember your name. And then, yeah, and eye contact is a huge one. If that's not something that's comfortable for you, if people have told you that's a problem for you, this is the stuff you practice. Okay? Learn how to do it, because it does make a difference. Like, you can take a psychology class here and figure out why, but it does. It's human behavior. If you look me in the eye, you give me a firm, dry handshake, it feels good. Right? You get the wet, clammy pasta and no eye contact, it doesn't feel good. Okay? And when you're in that interview, you've got 22 minutes to sell yourself. I say 22. All these interviews are booked for 30 minutes. It's going to be a minute or two late by the time you start. You get in there to do some brief introduction, getting settled, sit in your seats. Interviewer might be finishing the notes that they're writing from the last interview. Then you start. They're going to ask you some questions. If you get to speak for 22 minutes, you hit a home run. You won. Okay? Use those 22 minutes to sell yourself. That's what this is. It's a sales pitch. Right? Make sure when you get to that part of the interview, when they ask you, do you have any questions for me? That you've got some thoughtful questions. And think about them. Make sure they're not questions you've already answered in the interview. That they didn't already come up as part of your conversation. This is the place to show off, if it hasn't come up yet, what you know about current events, what you know about corporate strategy, what you know about what's happened with the firm or the industry or the politics that affects the industry. You can ask questions about regulation. You can ask questions about changes in rules. You can ask questions about things that have been said by regulators in the recent history. These are places where you can show, I know what I'm interviewing for. I care about your business. I'm not going to waste your time. I did some homework. Okay, that's what the questions are about. Hopefully, if you got general program level questions, most employers who come to this campus will have some kind of a pre-night. Ask those questions then. The stuff you want to spend your time in the interview is about, this is what I know, and this is the homework that I did to prep for this interview, so remember me. Okay, those are the types of questions you want to ask when you're finishing up that interview. And now, I'm going to open it up to you guys. I'm going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves, give you a little brief snippet on what they do in the industry, a little bit about their career, and then hopefully let you ask them questions. I can certainly kick off the questions if we want to start, but hopefully you guys have got some questions to ask. So Casey, why don't you start?
I'm Casey Coleman. I do all the front office recruiting at Jefferies. So Jefferies is a smaller shop, so that includes investment banking, capital markets, and anything such as equities, research, or fixed income. Yeah, and banking, I think I said that thing. So.
My name is Brian Doyle. I was class of '91. Started in public accounting with Price Waterhouse, was there for 4 years. Moved to Abbott Laboratories, where I was in international audit for 3 years, which was the best job I'll ever have in my life. Traveled to about 20 different countries. Then went to Harvard Business School, started William Blair in 2000. William Blair, it's similar to Jefferies. It's, you have Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, Jefferies, and on the slightly smaller, it's William Blair, it's Robert Baird, those types of places. Blair is a partnership, so very different than being a public company. Within Blair, I've spent 16 years, 4 of those in London, the rest in Chicago, and I'm in the investment banking group. The majority of my time is spent capital raising, so IPOs, private offerings, helping companies raise money, or on the M&A side, the vast majority of it's sell side, so selling businesses to strategic buyers or private equity firms. We've come back to Villanova, we've had good success. Dante was the class, is a first year with us, and I think with Villanova's success, we're looking forward to coming back to hopefully hire some of you guys.
Hi, Lauren Foley, Villanova class of 2006 in the business school. I work in operations at Morgan Stanley, so previously worked with Todd, and I'm also the team captain for Villanova recruiting within Morgan Stanley operations. So we put a big focus on making sure that we're reaching out and getting good representation from Villanova students in our recruiting process. I work within a team called Operations Client Relationship Management. As Todd touched on, there's several different parts of operations. My team focuses on external clients, our big institutional clients, and ensuring that they have the right support levels across our organization. Prior to working at Morgan Stanley, I worked at Bank of America for 10 years. Throughout operations, I started in Merrill Lynch's summer analyst program as a junior at Villanova, got the job offer, and kind of the rest is history. So happy to be here and looking forward to chatting.
I'm Steve Hanwacker, class of '01. I started as an equity options trader right from Villanova. Did that for 3 years with a company called Bear Wagner. I enjoyed trading, I enjoyed the markets, but my passion was really dealing with people, so that's when I transitioned over to the wealth management side and joined Merrill Lynch in 2004 as a client associate, which is essentially an assistant to a wealth management advisor. From there, you go through this training program, and I became an advisor, and right now I co-head a private wealth management team in the Rockefeller Center office in New York, and as Todd said, we work with high net worth individuals, and we pretty much manage their entire financial lives to make it easier. So while I'm an advisor, there is a lot of different other roles within wealth management. Advisor is really a one-track role, but there is a lot of different areas within wealth management you could pursue, and I'll be happy to talk about those after.
Hi everybody, I'm Jacqueline James. I'm a current senior, so I'm a student here, and I'm majoring in finance, economics, and international business. I'm also the co-president of the Equity Society, and how I kind of fit into the recruiting process is I spent the past 2 summers interning at Deutsche Bank in their leveraged finance investment banking group, and so I did the recruiting process my sophomore year, landed the summer analyst position, and came back for the following junior summer, and again as a summer analyst, and then I have accepted a position for full-time as a full-time analyst for next summer. So I'm more than happy to speak with everybody about going through the interviewing process as a student, and best practices, and just how to make the most out of your internship experience.
So Jack, I'm going to start with you. When you're probably sophomore year when you started this process, I don't know if you went through any interviews last year also. difference between super day setup versus on-campus interviews? Did you experience both, and what's it like? What did you have to do differently to prep?
Yeah, sure, definitely. So during my sophomore fall, I applied for a bunch of different types of internships, really wanted to have summer internship, but wasn't quite sure yet what I wanted to go into. So I did interview for various types of companies, including investment banks, and within investment banks, various divisions in those banks. So definitely important to figure out which specific group you want to kind of target, but also in terms of the setup between on-campus interviews versus super days, a little bit different. On campus, you're going to more likely be speaking with a Villanova alumni. A lot of times the alumni lead the on-campus interviews, and they typically have more campus opportunities, such as office hours a week in advance, or a firm-wide presentation maybe that week that you can go and maybe get to know your interviewers in advance and network with them. In terms of the super day experience, you don't necessarily know who you're going to be speaking with, and chances are they won't be a Villanova alumni, but you will have multiple interviews throughout the day. So the type of setup is a little bit more grueling in the sense that you might have morning rounds, and then if you are able to advance, then you would have afternoon rounds, and at the end of the day you would find out possibly if you got an offer or not.
Anybody want to add anything to that on those different types of experiences? Otherwise, I'll gladly ask what the students ask questions.
I was going to add that some of the interns, like Morgan Stanley, when we offer or we come to campus for our interview process, we also incorporate a group project into it. So we're looking to observe you within teams and make sure that we can see, leadership skills and how you interact with your other, potential coworkers. So that's probably not something that you do in the super days necessarily, but something that is a component to some interview processes.
Anybody have questions?
So for sophomores looking to get into the industry, looking to get that initial experience, but what's the main kind of things that you're looking for? You pointed out a couple of core ideas and core traits that you like to see in your resume, how you're coming across. What are the main things that you're looking for in sophomores specifically when you're trying to break into the industry, specifically into investment banking, but as it pertains to all of it?
I think for me, I don't expect that when I'm looking at your resume and we're sitting down and talking that you're going to have experience in the financial services industry in any way, shape, or form. So it's how you can tell me in your experiences in jobs over the summer or in your group activities during your classes, what you've taken out of them and what skills you've learned that you think can apply to a job in financial services. So really being able to highlight those transferable skills and show us the things that you think make you stand out from other people that we're going to be interviewing. I think that's number one for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sophomore year going into your junior year, that internship is a little bit tricky. For instance, at William Blair Investment Banking, we won't have internships unless it's a really unique case. So a sophomore, rising junior, that wouldn't be an opportunity. So it's all about getting something that is accounting, finance, something where you're probably in an office environment, I think is critical. The other thing that I see, and I think it depends. I think if you're interviewing on campus, it's maybe someone that's out of school for two or 3 years, and they're going to be asking you questions about, what was your experience doing this? Can you do a DCF for me? Those types of things. I think is people who interview more, and I think it's to your point earlier, they want to see really what people have done. So when I was interviewing, I was a caddy and a janitor, and that was it. But it was all about, those types of jobs. I love when people come in and on the resume, it's busboy, it's server, it's caddy, it's whatever, because, those are, skills that you learn how to deal with, how you learn to deal with people. So I think opportunities like that, don't hide that from the resume. I think you just have to have a reason it's on there and what you kind of brought to the table working with people, et cetera. I think the other thing is the question that you will get every interview, it's walk me through your resume. If you can't do that, you don't have a chance. So.
I was going to say, if you're a sophomore, you should have a resume. You should have had a job since you were 16. I love asking people, tell me about the summer you were 16. And if you give me a blank stare, I'm basically asking you, did you work? If either you worked or you were playing some type of sport or you were waking up at 5 a.m. every day for workouts or running or whatever, right? So from the age of 16 to, so how old are you when you're a sophomore? 20? 19? Whatever. So you should have been working for 4 years. You should have a resume. And if you don't, then talk to me personally, but like he was saying, we just want to know that you work. Like you want to be in finance, like you have to want to make money. So you should have been wanting to make money since the very beginning. I know when I was 15, I was born April 28th. On April 27th, I was at Dairy Queen with my application being like, gonna be 15 tomorrow or 16 tomorrow. Like I want the job. And the guy thought I was nuts, but I got the job. So my first job was, at Dairy Queen, which is not that cool, but like I like to work.
I like blizzards, come on.
Blizzards are good, right? I mean, not allowed.
People will remember that. Like when you're sitting down, kind of recapping the 40 interviews that you had over 2 weeks, like that type of story resonates. So, don't
Yeah, I think the other thing for the sophomore, rising junior summer, some firms will use that as a way to target specifically desirable diversity candidates. So places where firms are trying to change the demographics and the look of their organization, that's a place where they're going to hold spots available maybe to get some early action candidates that help meet some of the diversity goals of the organization. Right? It doesn't mean there's a box ticking exercise, but we are going to go out and look and try to find people that don't necessarily look like me, right? And well, nobody looks like me at that age, but looking for ways to fill in different experiences, different backgrounds, different exposures, different educations, and find ways to target employees that are sometimes harder to find. And that's a place where some sophomore programs will be specifically used for that. But I think any of the big bulge bracket shops, the vast majority, if not all, of their summer internships are filled with junior, rising seniors, and that those are because that is the pipeline to bring in the full-time analyst program. I think you'll find when you go to the smaller banks, and certainly some of the more regional banks, you'll find that maybe they have less of a defined program, and there might be some opportunities for that sophomore experience. But certainly, frankly, if it's a law firm, if it's an accounting firm, whatever, many different types of industries will give you an opportunity to get professional experience over that summer of your sophomore year into junior year, and that's definitely applicable. That's a valuable experience set, even if it's not financial services.
Yeah, I would get an internship as a sophomore at like a small shop, and then just be having coffee with the guys at William Blair and Morgan Stanley all summer. Just keep walking down the street, do one a week, So get the small time. I know I had tons of internships at brokerage shops that were like 50 people, just because I wanted to be in an office environment. So not that I'm a banker or anything, but whatever, you get the point.
Yeah, there's no real, I'm in the wealth management, there's no, you have to do this as a junior, you have to do this as a senior. It's not like that. So in the wealth management area, I think it's a great opportunity to be a sophomore going into junior year, because what I encourage interns that work with us during the summer is to do exactly what Casey said, get out and meet people. Call an alumni. It doesn't hurt to pick up the phone and call these people. And if you're good and you work hard, what do we do, the interns are doing, is it's not rocket science, right? Anybody could do it, but it's what you really make of it is what's important. So we try to, if an intern is really committed to helping us, we're going to introduce them to some of our clients, some people internally that we know. So they get exposure to different areas of finance, not just what we're doing. So it's I think it's a very good spot to start.
Anybody here is a student athlete? Is the internship a challenge for you? Do you have summer commitments to school for sports?
We have to come back early for that.
Okay. Anybody ROTC has fleet commitments and stuff, so it makes it difficult. Right. For those experiences, be creative. Find ways, and maybe it's the place where you get exposure to a retail, a wealth management business in the area. Right? Maybe you do an internship, like during the school year internship. You find a way to work a couple hours a week into a professional work environment. You're trying to build things in your resume that you can talk to. They're going to help you get into the thing that lands you the next step in your career. You might not be able to go through the traditional bulge bracket 10-week summer program, right? But frankly, if you're going to go serve in the fleet for 4 years after you get out of here anyway, you're not looking to parlay that full-time job, but you are looking to get some experience, because maybe you're not looking for a career, maybe you want to go back to the civilian world in 4 to 6 years. In which case, this little bit of experience, trust me, is going to help. Right? I mentor a lot of vets through American Corporate Partners. Right? If they've got some professional experience before they go off to active duty, it actually makes life a lot easier coming back, because they remember what it was like when they worked in that environment where they wore suits, not uniforms. Right?
The other thing is that I used to use a lot, and I haven't been on the Villanova site in a while, but there's a like a directory of us, or of all alumni. We don't, I mean, I bet you guys don't even know you're in there. But, so if you, let's say you're from like, I don't know, the middle of Oregon or something, and you can't afford to go move to New York for the summer, so you have to stay in your hometown or whatever. You type in your zip code or your town or your state or whatever in the directory, we come up, and where we work and all that stuff is saved. So I use that as a resource. Just start clicking around when you're watching TV tonight, and if you fall into that category, I think a lot of you might, it's pretty interesting who's out there and what we do, and you know, there might be some guy in your hometown who, you know, runs a small shop, and you can go work for him for the summer, and I don't know, maybe get paid, maybe not, I don't know, just another resource that I think is helpful.
Yeah, and I would say that paid or not, if it's on the resume as an internship, it's great. If it's paid, all the better, but that, you may get that question, you may not, but it's still an internship, so.
It's New York City and it's unpaid, somebody's got to pay him, because it's expensive. But if it's hometown and it's unpaid, okay, especially if it's that freshman summer or sophomore summer, right? Those are places where you're looking for anything that's going to fill in your experience set. And there's also nothing wrong with carrying some golf bags for the summer.
Yep.
Right? There's absolutely nothing wrong with fresh. Like, I would much rather see that than a blank. And I would much rather you talk to me about how you sweated your ass off all summer carrying somebody's bags and what you learned from that experience. And maybe it was just you were coming back to school and bringing grades up. And that's something that I learned the summer that I worked for a mason, digging ditches and mixing concrete, is I was going back to college and I was going to graduate. Because I was not going to do that the rest of my life. Okay? Because that's really hard work. And what I do today is easy. Any questions?
What are some good tips to differentiate yourself from other candidates in an interview and make yourself stand out, leave a lasting impression, when we all probably have fairly similar resumes, good GPAs, good extracurriculars, so it's something to stand out?
I mean, for me personally, I have at the end of my resume an interest section, like below like the other activities that I'm in, and there I just like list a few things that I'm really passionate about that if they got brought up in an interview, I could discuss like for a very long time. So I actually, during my super day for the companies I'm working at, I had like 3 or 4 interviews, and every single interview they asked me, because I had in my interest section that I like to travel and that I'd been to 35 countries, like I just did travel like 35 countries, and every single person asked me, what's your favorite country and why? And then at the end of the interview, switching to that, away from the technicals that can be very difficult to not like to mess up, and you want to switch to something that's a little bit more light, it was actually a really great way to divert the conversation to something I could definitely talk fully about.
Yeah, I agree. Don't ignore that section or not pay attention to it. I think it's an important one. Don't also embellish it. Don't make something up just because you want to sound more interesting than you really are. But it is a really good way for, you know, an interviewer to look at something that might stand out versus the other resumes and ask you a question about it. And then, you know, that's a way that we can differentiate you when we're going back and looking at all the people that we've spoken with that day. The other thing I would say is one of the Villanova students that I interviewed this past semester knew a substantial amount about a current event that was going on within Morgan Stanley. It wasn't that she just read the headlines and maybe like the first paragraph or 2 of what was going on, but she took the time to really understand a little bit more about it and ask some really intelligent questions that really surprised me and kind of left me with the impression that she was really interested, and she kind of really wanted to know more and get involved in the organization. So, you know, just make sure that if you're asking questions that you've done a lot of research, that they're not just surface questions, that they're questions that are also, that could potentially make us think, because that actually really, you know, enlightened me and made me more interested.
Sorry.
The thing that I would add is, for on-campus interviews, you often have the opportunity to meet some or all of the interviewers beforehand. Right? You might know who's coming down to interview. If it's a company that's here every year for multiple years, like Morgan Stanley, like, ask the Career Center, who's coming down to do the interviews? What do you know about them? Find ways to figure out if you can make a connection, because, you know, I know when we did Morgan Stanley, we come down here, we interview 35 students in a day. Right, we do an information session the night before. It's a pre-night. It allows you to ask the generic questions, but it also allows you to network and maybe disarm us a little bit, make us a little bit less scary. That's a place to find a way to find something you can connect with the people you're going to interview with about. So whether it was a shared interest or activity on campus, whether it was a shared work experience in the area, whether it was a dorm that you both lived in, like, find something where you can break the ice and make a connection to the person. because that's the kind of thing, although, they're like mini super days on campus, you meet 15, 20 people in a day, it's hard to remember any one of them unless there is something special about the conversation. So that great thoughtful question does it. That personal connection to something about me, like you find out what my hometown is, you find out what my me. If you were also a political science major, you might ask me some specific questions about how I went from that to a career in finance. And that's a pretty, trust me, I've heard it a bunch of times, so that's probably a pretty canned one. But if you find a way to make a unique experience between the two of us, I'm more likely to remember who you are literally 5 hours later when I'm making a decision, let alone 2 or 3 weeks later. I'm almost unlikely to remember anybody 5 or 6 weeks later.
The other thing you guys have at your disposal now is Google and LinkedIn, so you don't want to stalk your interviewers and the people who are coming to campus, but it is a really good way for you to, learn a little bit about the people who might be interviewing you. If you Googled Todd Sullivan and Morgan Stanley, you'd see some of the industry boards that he's on and, some of the things that he does around Villanova. So it's another good tool that you guys have that
Probably watched
10 years ago I didn't even really have.
I was just going to say, so I don't do campus recruiting, so I will unlikely get in contact with someone your age, so I'm more senior, not senior, meaning like associate and up, pretty much. But one of the things that I encounter, and I'm literally mind blown on a daily basis that this happens, but like the authenticity of who you are and what you want to do is so off base sometimes. Like, the majority of you might not end up on this street, to be honest, in the capacity that you think you will. Like, if you want to be an investment banker because you want to be really, really rich and you got a guy down the street that you just want a big house like him, like, that's a bad reason to want to be a banker. Like, you should, sorry, no, I'm sure you live in a lovely house, but like, you have to reevaluate, like, what you're really good at, like Todd was saying, but my dad ran equities at Credit Suisse for a long time, and that's a big shadow to live in as a kid. And I struggled a lot with trying to figure out where I was going to end up in my career. And I always thought I wanted to be like him because he's so successful and everyone admired him and people would listen when he would speak. And like, I wanted to be like that, but the reality is I struggled a lot, and I started Morgan Stanley out of my career. How I got that job is absolutely, they shouldn't have hired me. Bad. But like, I'm really bad at math. I really am. I'm not interested in the markets. I don't like to read the Wall Street Journal. It's just not naturally interesting to me. One of the things I am good at is that I understand the industry really well. I understand how all the pieces fit together. I've been listening to my dad for years. How do you interview? It's like, I felt like I grew up on a trading desk. But I'm really grateful that somewhere in my mid-20s, I finally stopped trying to be something I wasn't. I stopped trying to live in my dad's shadow, and I started to really embrace what I was naturally good at. Because what I'm naturally good at, I'm always going to be better at than you are. So if you embrace what you're naturally really good at, you'll always be better at it than me. And I think that I get all these resumes of people trying to be something that they're, and I know this sounds so like philosophical and like, not trying to be like Tony Robbins, but the reality is you would save so much of your own time and my time, frankly, if you just really had like a quiet moment and talk to mentors that you actually would give you constructive criticism. First of all, if you can't take constructive criticism and you're really arrogant and egotistical, like that's a big deal. I was super arrogant because I was like, oh, I'm Georgia Star, I'll just get a job. Like, that's a really bad way to live your life. And you wake up and you're like 27 years old and you're like, holy crap, like I'm miserable. Like, everything looks good on the outside, but I'm absolutely miserable. So once I finally kind of evaluated, like, this is what I'm really good at, now I'm in a job that I love, and I'm actually better at it than everybody else. That's a nice feeling. So if you're in this room because, like, your friends are in finance and your dad's in finance or your neighbor, like, that's a bad reason to be in this room. Like, reevaluate what you're good at, and the job that you're going to get, you're supposed to get. Like, if you have a 3.8 and you love DCF models and you're crushing it in your, finance accounting class, then you should be in this room because you love it. You are excited. Like, you want to be in that seat, and that should be your seat. But if you're not that person, then don't apply. Don't go in an interview and talk to everyone here and like you just blow yourself up and you'll be humiliated. So anyway, that's my little piece of advice.
Yeah, I think the other thing I'd add, for everybody here, we're seeing candidates come across from all the Ivies in Chicago. We're seeing U of C, Northwestern, Notre Dame, unfortunately, but we see that all the time. And so the caliber of people that you're competing against is extremely high. The consistent feedback that we've had from Villanova students that come in, the hit rate of people that we get from campus to come is extremely high. It's probably about 50%, which is better than all the other schools. And I think the thing that Villanova does well, the quality of students here, they're very easy to relate to. I think some of the Ivies, very interesting group, maybe off the charts, somebody from MIT, whatever the case is, they can run the models beyond belief, but that's not really what everybody wants. So I think once you get past the hurdle, it's all about kind of advancing. It's kind of, move on to the next round. You'll do very well. I think, generally it's maybe the group, but they can relate to, people's parents and things like that. So I think from a confidence standpoint, when you do eventually get to a final round, you're going to see people from Harvard, Penn, whatever, but I think you're going to do better in the interviews. The question will be for people, it's like, what were your SATs? And somebody from Penn might be higher. But again, you're going to be with them every step of the way. So I think confidence, you should be high when you get there. Second thing would be, to Todd's point, know what you're interviewing for and know the firm you're interviewing for. We do get not cover letters that say Goldman Sachs when they're applying to Morgan Stanley. We get Robert Baird when they're applying for William Blair. So it's a little bit different, but avoid that stuff.
Full disclosure, I made the same mistake this afternoon when I was talking and Lauren and I were prepping for this panel. I mistook your firm, and I was like, oh, shit, wrong one.
You already have a job.
I already have a job,
Yeah.
and I wasn't prepping for the interview. I was doing 10 minutes for the homework before this.
Yeah, but kind of make sure you know what you're doing. And I think if you're going to New York, that's great. But for instance, at William Blair, we're headquartered in Chicago. You start there, you can move to New York, London, San Fran, whatever the case is. But you got to have a reason why you're there. And it's like, oh, my first trip to Chicago, this is great. That's not going to play well. It's like, why do you want to be there? And you could be from Pennsylvania. It doesn't make any difference. But it's all about, hey, I want a job, and I want to do investment banking, research, whatever the case is. And it doesn't matter if it's in Peoria, New Orleans, whatever. This is what I want to do, and this is kind of the place I want to be, whatever job you're going for. And I would say that really to open up your horizons, I think you gotta, depending on what you want to do, if it's sales and trading, investment banking, I think if you can get Goldman, Morgan Stanley, Jefferies, whatever the case is, BAML on your resume, that's fantastic. But I mean, the number of opportunities is pretty small. So be it Piper, be it Blair, you gotta be willing to go broad.
The other thing I just thought of was the head of equities this year called me and said, hey, we want to do a super day, but for people who are 2-3 years in the industry. And they had never done that before. And I said, okay, I've never done that either, but let's do it. I said, okay, where do you want me to find it? Like, do you want me to go out and headhunt, so to speak? And they're like, oh no, we already have resumes. So where'd you get the resumes? And they were all people that had been referred in by the desk, by the team. So we had like 20, and then we got it down to 10, and we actually ended up hiring 2 of that 20. But just the thing I wanted to say to you is, if you're one of those people who doesn't get the job at Morgan, but you get the job doing something else, like at Bloomberg or at, I'm just trying to think of smaller shops that do something different but are still relevant, right?
And BMO and the Canadian banks and like any regional banks.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be banking. Like, it can be something kind of really different, but it's still market centric, right? And then just keep networking, because the only reason these 2 guys got a job is because somebody on the desk was vouching for them. And I'll be honest with you, the 2 guys that got the job, their advocates were like down my throat. They were so obnoxious. It was really, and they prepped the crap out of the guy who was interviewing. I mean, they really just prepped him, and they were I'm sorry, what is your name?
Jacqueline.
Jacqueline. So they were hooking up with someone, like connecting with Jacqueline, and then sorry, that came out wrong. Let's try to recover from that one. But they were young people on the desk. It wasn't the senior guys, it was the junior ones who were like, hey, I went to school with Jacqueline, and like, we really need to bring this, I feel very strongly about this person. Prep the crap out of them. So when the Super Day came, like, these people knew the answers to every question because, like, Jacqueline had prepped them. So you know, I just found it very interesting that they decided to go about recruiting in a really different way. It was like, let's find a 2-3 year person who is doing something else but wants to be here. And frankly, those people want to, they're already out of the drinking scene. Like, they're done with brother agendas. They're like moving on to actually being grown-ups, right? And if you guys are still doing that, like, you need to rethink you're smiling, right?
They can
like,
still
be
be doing
mature.
it.
Yeah.
They're fine.
Yeah, they recovered.
I mean, some of them can't even run those movies yet.
Oh man, whatever. Anyway, you get my point.
Yes.
Like as somebody, like I'm a freshman, so like how do you go from saying I took intro at the econ in high school and I love that, so that's why I went to business school, to like knowing what type of job you would want in the industry?
How do you figure it out?
Yeah.
Yeah, so go get an internship somewhere, right? And then spend the summer just sitting down with people. Like, I'm happy to have coffee with you, Todd's happy. Like, we're, at the end of the day, like, we're all, you know, just regular people, you know, just doing our lives, right? I think that when I was younger, I used to glorify everybody. Was like, oh, it's such a big deal, they sit in a panel. Like, I was Snapchatting you guys before, like, I'm human, you know? The only way you're gonna figure out what you wanna do is to figure out what you don't wanna do. Be with as many people as physically possible. When I was, before I got my job at Morgan Stanley, I actually lived in Argentina for a long time, which was really stupid. But when I got back to New York, I went and just went on that directory thing I was talking about, and I met with so many people. You know, people want to help out Villanovans, and I used to keep the, you know, the tags they give you that says like Casey Coleman's now in the Time Inc. building or whatever, and I used to put them in a vase. I had like 37 of them. Maybe 37 is too much. I'm a very intense person, but like, just go meet with as many people as physically possible. Be like, hey, Todd, what do you do? I'm a freshman. I know nothing. Teach me wisdom, please.
And I do think, take advantage of the upperclassmen, I mean, that have had internships. I'm sure they're happy to talk about their experience. They're on campus. I would say when you go to networking events or when you reach out to alumni, people will be very open to try to help, but especially at the networking events, bear in mind they are, even though it's kind of an open forum, you're still making an impression. So if you better have a sense of what the answer might be to a question, because, you know, all's fair when they're making evaluations. Anything that happens the night before, that kind of weighs into it too. So the more you can do, I think, on campus with peers, be it juniors, seniors that have done stuff, I think the smarter you're going to be. And the more honest, I think, the conversation can be. You don't have to try to impress them necessarily, but you can really get to the meat of the question.
I agree with that. I don't know if like the Equity Society or the M&A Society do that, but if you could find a way to kind of let people share their internship experiences with the you know, more junior people within the society, I think that would be really useful.
Yeah, definitely. So like in terms of things you can do freshman year and onward to get involved, like join the business societies. There's so many in different fields that might interest you, and like you were saying, we do have panels. Within Equity Society, we do have like an interns panel where juniors and seniors who've had internships in the industry get up and speak about their experiences, and usually we have these events open to like other societies too. So definitely get involved in those and use those resources, but also make an effort to reach out to juniors and seniors, because there always are a few people, like a handful of people who will reach out to like me, for instance, to learn more about the interviewing process or how to get internships at specific companies, but really not enough people are reaching out to the juniors and seniors at those firms that they want to work at. So definitely try to do that if you can. Use your Villanova network.
I remember you saying how the industry has changed over time with the different fields and everything, and shared services is becoming a big part. When it comes to applying specifically with certain firms, and how do you feel about a candidate who's applying for more than one position, like different areas of interest? Does that work to their advantage, disadvantage?
It's a double-edged sword. You can have benefits because it can give you more than one opportunity. But it also can expose a real lack of clarity into which field. So if you've got two programs that really interest you, and you've got a compelling elevator speech for each, if you're asked the question, you should share why you're interested in both. If you're not asked the question, I wouldn't talk about the other things you're also interviewing for. Any large firm that comes to campus to interview for multiple programs is only going to make one job offer. So what often happens, and this happened a lot when I was running recruiting here for Morgan Stanley, is we would come down for operations and our colleagues in finance would also come down. So they would only look at finance, accounting, and economics majors. I would look at any major. But occasionally we would overlap where there was a finance major that applied for a job in operations, did really well to the interviewing program, and that applied for a job in finance and did really well in interviewing there. And both of us would like to make an offer. The team captains from both teams would sit down and we decide who's going to make the offer. Right? But only one offer goes out. We won't give you the Chinese menu and let you choose, one from column A and one from column B. That's not going to happen. But you don't have to disclose that or discuss that in the interview. If it does come up in the interview process, make sure you're prepared to explain why both appeal to you. Right? And certainly where it's two things within shared services, so finance and accounting, HR and operations, like finance and operations, like those, there are logical points of intersection. There are places that you could put together a very coherent story that would make sense of what you've learned and who you've met and the type of networking you've done that makes that logical. There are other ones where if you want to be an investment banker or in operations, I'm calling bullshit, right? You're not suited to do both those jobs. Both of those don't appeal to you because they're very different types of careers. They're very different types of experiences. I think you might have spent a summer interning in investment banking and come back to me, to Casey's point, and say, I learned what I hate and I'm never doing that again. Right? That's possible. Or I spent the summer working in operations and I shadowed 15 other people in operations and I couldn't find a single thing I wanted to do there. I want to be in sales. I want to be in trading. I want to be in, those are compelling stories. I understand that. Make sure you've got that thought through, right? How you're going to explain that. Or you've got a shift in direction or shifting gears. Tell me what you learned, right? Tell me what occurred to you. If you're going in two different directions at the same time, tell me how those paths are actually parallel. They're not going in two different directions. Right? You're ready to explain that story. Okay. All right, we've got about 10 minutes left here, so I'm going to make a couple of plugs now for sort of the culture part of this and the thing that I hope some of you will leave with. Number one, this panel included, if people help you throughout this process, whether it's interview with you and you have a great experience, right? The handwritten thank you note goes farther than anything, okay? It's most valuable for building a network and building a foundation for a network, okay? It's probably not as influential in making the decision whether or not you get a job offer following this interview, because we probably make that decision faster than the U.S. mail moves, okay? But there's nothing wrong with following up.
That's pretty slow.
Yeah. The U.S. mail moves really slow.
Yeah.
I think we make decisions on hiring much faster than that, is what I said.
Oh.
Yeah.
Isn't that a bad analogy?
No. So I'm saying if you're writing a handwritten, so I was about to get to the.
Oh,
so all of you are carrying a smartphone. As you walk out of the interview, send a thank you note, an email thank you note. If it was a good one, if it was an interview that you would like to maintain that connection in your network going forward, write the handwritten note and drop it in the mail that afternoon. Right? That one, the mail one, is not going to influence the hiring decision. It's going to come days after the decision is made. The email can remind me of something that was great about the conversation we had. It's going to re-spark that thing that was a connection that we had a lot of fun talking about for 3 minutes. Right? Remind me what that thing was, because that might make me think about you again just at the moment I'm making a decision as to who we make a job offer to. Might not, but unless it was a horrible conversation, it's probably not going to do you any damage. Okay? So send the immediate thank you note in email. Send a handwritten note if you want to maintain a connection with this person, because that does last. I explain this every time I come back to campus and talk to students, and I get a remarkably low number of handwritten notes. But if you ever write me a handwritten note when I come down and do something for you as a student, and some point in the future you reach out to me for help, right? I go back and look when somebody asks me for help at some point in their career. Did this person write me a thank you note when I came to campus and talked to them, or I came to their class and talked to them, or when they came to New York and I gave them an informational interview? Did they write me a handwritten thank you note? I have a pile of them in my drawer, and I do go through when people ask for help. I'm a Villanova alum, can you help me out? I look, if you sent me a note the last time I did something for you, I'll move mountains to help you. If you didn't, it goes on the to-do list. I'll get there, but it's not the top priority. If you took the time to write me a note when I did really nothing material for you last time, that gets a priority call on my time. So think about that today, when you go outside and you meet with some of the professionals that are here to do some networking with you tonight. If you make a connection with somebody, write them a thank you note, okay? It matters, right? They're taking time from their evenings, they could all be home having dinner, seeing their family, they're here and they're gonna talk to you. Because they're doing what I'm gonna ask you to do now, which is go back and give back when you're done here, okay? Villanova's helping Villanova's works because we keep doing this generation after generation after generation, okay? I didn't know how powerful this network was when I was here. I spent the last 20 years spending a lot of time trying to convince you guys that this is probably the most valuable thing that you or your parents are paying for in sending you to Villanova, right? It's a phenomenal education, it's a great school, and it was a ton of fun, okay? But you got an amazing alumni network when you walk out of here. You become part of that the minute you walk out of here. Give back, okay? It's how it works. Give back time, give back money, give back resources, give back advice, give back expertise, connections, network, whatever it is, Villanova's help Villanova's, okay? And then the rest of it is, those of you who got things to do, if you've got a class you have to go tonight, I understand. If you don't, there are a bunch of professionals here who took their evening to come spend time with you. Go out and meet them, talk to them, ask them questions, ask about their careers, ask about their industry, ask about this process, ask what their involvement is in recruiting, if they've got other advice that they can help share with you. Make this evening something where you learn a lot, but also you recognize the commitment they're all making to you. Anything from the panelists? Anyone to add?
I just continue to build your network. What you guys doing, trying to get a job, is what I do every day, and trying to get new clients. So you try to be memorable as much as you can. But one thing that I noticed that a couple of people that I met with have done, and this is just, it's been years. Every 6 months, they kind of send me an update on what they're doing. So it's a quick synopsis. You could just, it's email. Hey, I'm up to this. I've spent some time here doing this. And it keeps them relevant in my head. Will I respond? Maybe, maybe not, depending on what I'm doing at that moment. But it keeps it relevant in my head. So I thought that was a pretty unique idea. 2 people have done that so far, just kind of keeping me updated. And I might never turn into anything for them, but they're actively engaging with me in order to do that. So it shows an effort.
As a general rule, and that's, I've heard it from a number of different people, if you don't talk to somebody once every 6 months, they're not in your network. And so that might be somebody very much trying to keep you in their network. They're going to make sure they have that touch point every 6 months, every 5 months, they're going to send you something, right? That's probably a good rule of thumb. If you're trying to build your network, if you want to keep things active, making sure there's a touch point, at least twice a year, right? And Christmas cards don't count. Because we read thank you notes, we don't read Christmas cards.
And clean up your LinkedIn profiles. Like, make them professional, put your experience on them. I will absolutely look at them. I will look at your Facebook page. I will look up your Instagram. Like, either block it or keep it clean. I do spend a lot of time doing that.
I think the other thing I'd add is whenever you walk into an interview, just be very confident. You're there because they're impressed by what you had on paper. Don't be cocky, but be confident that they want to talk to you. The other thing, I would stress is just be genuine to kind of what's on your resume. I think it's what Todd started with. Just kind of really be proud of what you've done. And probably the most important thing is the people you will be interviewing with, be it on campus or on a super day, chances are they have had 8, 9, 10 interviews that day. You're exhausted, they're exhausted. You've got to be the one who brings the energy. If you don't bring it, they'll be like, God, who was that 7th interview? I don't even remember who it was. So if you can kind of bring some energy, some positivity, it will go a long way.
I would just say, be genuine, like everyone else said, and just be aware that we're just people who are trying to help you guys get jobs. So if you have anxiety going into an interview, maybe it's your first interview, just think about the fact that, we're human beings who have been in a similar situation at one point in our lives. And also leverage the Villanova card. So like Todd said before, we all want to hear about the basketball. We all want to hear about what's going on campus. So it's a great way to find a way to connect with us, either during an interview, in a networking event, or a way to stay in touch after we've met tonight. So don't be afraid to do that, because a lot of the alumni, that's all we want to hear about, really. It's one of the biggest things.
Casey brought up a really important point, and I don't want to miss it. Your social networking, social profile, the message on your outgoing voicemail. I don't want the one you recorded at 2:30 in the morning, Sunday morning, with your buddies when you were drunk, right? I want the one that says professionally, who I reached, you're not available, and you call me back as soon as possible, right? And that's it. If you're interviewing, Make sure any way you show me that I can get in touch with you, which means if you give me your name, I'll find you online. Make sure it all shows the image you want me to see. Okay? It used to be funny. It's not funny now. Now it costs you jobs. Like, we used to laugh at this when it first started happening, and you'd go to people's Facebook pages, and frankly, I would be so old as to go back to like MySpace and stuff. You find pictures of what people were doing at a weekend party. It's fine with your friends. It's not okay when your boss sees it. Okay? Same thing around wardrobe, and I covered that in the in the what do you wear. I am a dad of a teenage daughter. Like, she's not allowed to go out of the house wearing certain things. You shouldn't show up in an interview with those things. But just you dress for the way you want people to think about you. Behave and put out the social profile of the things that you want me to think about you. Don't give me a reason to not want to talk to you again. Yes?
Just a tip, my name's Matt, by the way. I work with one of the companies that will be out there networking. Since we're talking about LinkedIn, your LinkedIn profile picture should not be you taking it of yourself, or look like it was taken on a cell phone. Put on your suit, get one of your friends to use this quasi-decent digital camera and just stand with a blue background or a white background and make that your LinkedIn profile, because when we look for people on LinkedIn, we'll look and make judgments before we even click on their profile. You know, if it looks like you took this photo like in front of your car in your driveway, we might not even click to look at you because it's like, this is the first impression that you're apparently okay with. We don't want that type of person working for us. So get somebody you know to take a half-decent photo of you and make that your LinkedIn and whatever profile picture, because it does matter. People do look at it and make decisions based on what that is. So I've just seen that a lot. People that have been in industry for 10, 15 years sometimes have pictures where you're like, how did they get away with this? But definitely when you're new, do not even risk someone just looking and making a decision that might not be who you are, but that's what they think initially.
And don't do no picture. No picture, I don't talk to you. That means you're hiding something, or you don't know how to use social media.
At the
Dead serious.
At the career fair on Thursday, they do free professional LinkedIn headshots. So just put on a
Awesome.
suit, go to that, get it figured out.
I need to do that. I need to change them. But I'm recruiting, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you have
No
to.
one cares.
Okay? Guys, thank you very much.